welcome to the 308th edition of Talk of the Town. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ken Bukes. You know that anyways. What I'd like to do is I'd like to thank my wife for putting this show together tonight, and I'm sorry that she's not here, but anyways, you'll enjoy this. I'm sure you will. First off, I want to thank our underwriters. We got a great group of underwriters. We're going to start off with David and Kevin Gallerani, Cape Auto Body and Service, located on 2 locations, Somerset Street and Sandwich Street in beautiful downtown Plymouth. Next up, we have Wrestling Brewster PC Solutions. He's got a new saying. I can't remember what it is, so I'll go with the old one. Training simplified, and I can't remember the rest. Wrestling, I'm sorry. Next up, we have One Stop Painting with Jeff Cohen. How are you, Jeff? We have attorney Trifletti and Costa on Long Pond Road. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Ellen. And then we have Seeley's Hair Salon in beautiful downtown Manomet, right next door to a shout-out, Cindy's Metro. Down the street from another shout-out called Geller's. Hi, Susie. You can follow us on Twitter. Our guests do, and we follow them. You can also find us on Facebook at Talk of the Town. Click like. See you like the show. You'll be able to catch all the updates. Now that I have my edit suite back, I'll be updating the site. You can also participate in this program by dialing the phone number 508-830-3971 early and often. We've got a great guest. We have 2 great guests here tonight, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this program. But next up, I have to plug something. So I want to talk about the Lions Club. We have a great function coming up real soon. It is the Thirsty Pilgrim. It's going to be down at the Hedge House on the waterfront on September 7th and 8th. If you were to purchase this Lions mug, it will get you 2 days of admission to the Thirsty Pilgrim, and it will entitle you to your free samples of beer. All of money, by the way, it's a 501c3, so the money comes right back into the community, goes to iResearch. The Lions do a lot of great things for the community. I'm very proud to say that I am a Lion along with my wife, Karen. So spend the $20 and buy this mug. You can either contact either Karen or myself or any one of the other Lions and purchase this mug, and the money will go to a worthy cause. And on that, I'm going to get off my soapbox, and we're going to get into the program. We have 2 guests that are returning. One of them is returning. The other is first time being on Talk of the Town. And they come from the Manomet Center for Conservation Sciences in beautiful downtown Manomet. They have just come back one has come back from the Arctic, the other has just come back from Alaska. I want you to welcome Talk of the Town's 2 guests, Brad Winn and Ian Davies. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight.
Great to be here again, Ken.
Love having you here. It's always interesting. You have great information. Karen and I are both bird lovers, and a lot of the people that watch this program are bird lovers.
Terrific.
And you guys have some really great things that you want to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quiet.
Okay.
And occasionally interrupt you.
Sure.
But why don't you tell our viewers what the both of you have been up to since you've been here the last time?
Sure, yeah. We've been working in Arctic Alaska and Arctic Canada on some research this summer, and we've just gotten back. Ian's been back about a week or so from Alaska, and what we wanted to do is talk about not only the work we were doing up there, but also talk about Manomet a little bit and about the birds particularly that we've been studying, and kind of a life history of those birds, and tie it all into to the Plymouth area and to Plymouth Beach, and talk about some of the issues that these birds are facing on their long migrations.
I want you to talk about the wonderful facility you have tucked away up on the cliff there. It's a wonderful ride. I love going by there because even as I ride through, to me it's the woods. Mm-hmm. But as I ride through there, a lot of birds actually just cross over, and I see some really beautiful species of birds and some wonderful songbirds. And I know that we're not going to be dealing with specifically songbirds tonight, but I'd like you to talk about the observatory or Conservation Science Center.
Sure.
And I'd like you to talk about that and what it is that we in the community can do to help this 501c3 along its merry way and continue this great service that you provide to actually the world. So why don't you...
Sure, what a great introduction. And
well, thank you.
The birds that you saw there actually drew the attention of some folks back in the late 60s, and they decided to start a banding program there with the land birds, the songbirds you mentioned. And the land birds was a great place to start long-term work, and it's continuing. So, you know, in 1969, Manomet was founded as a nonprofit, as you indicated, 501c3, and it continues today, and it's become one of the, not only the longest or the oldest, most well-established conservation organization in New England, but we have work going on from, as we're going to talk about tonight, high Arctic areas all the way down into southern South America now, all linked together by shorebirds and the migratory routes they take. And we're working hard with many partners to see what we can do to maintain many of those species that have been declining over the years. So we can talk a little bit about the landbird program. I think Steve might have had a question about the landbird program.
Steve would like to talk to you about landbirds.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know when you think that do you want that question now?
Sure, we'll roll with that.
Stevie,
yeah.
Why don't you come on over here and yell kind of loud so people can hear you?
First of all, I want to thank you guys for being here again. I was really impressed with you the last time you were on. And the two questions I have is, actually I have two. It was several years ago I went to the South Shore Observatory, and I watched them, and it had these nets that were set up to catch the birds, and so they could tag them. And the other question, and do you do the same here, and you know, in your trapping of birds? And the other question I have is, because of global warming, do we have more species now, or different species of birds that we had before? And I'll let you guys answer, and I'll listen. Thank you.
Sure, really good questions. And I guess I should say that many people locally know Manomet as the Manomet Bird Observatory, still MBO, and it has evolved and changed and brought in many other programs besides just birds right now. Some really interesting things, and you can any of your viewers can go to manomet.org and see all the conservation projects we have going on. There's some really interesting things that are evolving there.
Is that how also they can find out about how they can help the organization with financial contribution?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Manomet.org, and then all the programs are listed individually, and you can go to the programs that you're most interested in and find out how to get in touch with us. And certainly contributions are a big part of what we do, and we use them frequently to match other grants that we get. So private dollars are very, very important to Manomet.
You do a great job over there. Very good.
So the netting's still going on. The landbird netting is still going on, and I think that Ian, I'm going to ask him to really fill in, because he started at a young age at Manomet, and has emerged now as being a really kind of a up and coming great bird resource. So I'll let Ian talk about his beginnings at Manomet. At what age were you?
I started there when I was 12.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was into nature pretty much my whole childhood, and I happened to live about a mile away from the bird observatory. And one day I just decided to go over and check it out, heard about it from some friends, and I went and observed the landbird banding process, and I just basically fell in love with it. And now Ever since then, I volunteered for a few years. Then I worked for them at Manomet for 2 or 3 years. And now for 2 summers, I've been lucky enough to go up to Arctic Canada and do the sort of work that we'll be
It must
talking
be
more about.
fascinating to do that.
It's
One of the
amazing.
photos that they're going to see at home in a little while is, I like how you really get into your work. You get down there on the ground
Yeah.
with that camera.
Oh yeah,
Gotta give it all.
superb photographer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he and I both have photos tonight. We're going to share with you, and we'll tell some short stories as we go along to make things interesting. But we both had, even though we're many miles apart, had some similar experiences in both the eastern part of. It's actually Hudson Bay. I was up in the north end of Hudson Bay in Canada on a small island. But let's talk about landbirds a little bit first. What you were mentioning, and Steve was wondering about netting, and we do things differently in the Arctic. We'll get to that in a minute. So
Okay.
different group of birds.
I'll follow your lead. Go for
Okay,
it.
they're a different group of birds altogether, but we can talk a little bit about, touch about what goes on. You want to talk a little bit about banding land birds at Manomet?
So for the land birds, we use a kind of net called a mist net, which is the sort of net that Stevie was talking about seeing many years ago. And so those kind of nets are the sort of thing that we catch the land birds with. And that's the best way to catch these migrant birds that are moving through the forest. But when we're up on the tundra in the Arctic, there's a whole different kind of suite of birds that we're going for. And so we have to use different methodologies instead of the mist nets, which are basically 40-foot long nets that you just hang passively in the woods. We use what are called bow nets to gently capture the birds when they're on the nests, and that is how we band them up there.
We could talk a little bit about the different migratory strategies between land birds and then the shorebirds we're going to be talking a lot more about, and they're very different, and they're important different strategies on how the birds are moving from southern wintering grounds to northern nesting areas. And with the land birds, a lot of them are actually coming up into New England and through southern Canada that come through here on the way north. So Manomet works in the spring as the birds are filtering north,
Right.
and then on the way south too, and measuring the numbers of birds, the different species of birds as they come through, and banding them, and frequently getting recaptures of some of those birds that were banded in previous years. And there are other people doing similar things with these land birds. But with land birds, they migrate usually steadily with very short jumps. So they're
Right.
and much of it happens at night. So during the day, they're feeding in a forest plot somewhere, for instance, and then they will migrate at night some distance, and then they'll stop again, and they'll forage, and so they're refueling themselves all along the way. Shorebirds. And much of the work that's been discovered about shorebirds started with some of the first Manomet biologists. But shorebirds are long hop migrants, so they fuel up at a place, let's say northern coast of South America.
Okay.
They put on a lot of weight, fueling up with rich foods, usually associated with wetlands. Coastal wetlands are very important to shorebirds. And they fuel up, they put on a lot of weight, they build muscle mass for flying, and then they blast off, and they go long distances, and they burn a lot of the fat that they've gained during the fueling time, and then they land again in a place that they know from past experience is a rich place for them to find lots of the critters they eat. And they'll refuel again, and then they go another long hop. And we'll show you some of the hops these birds are taking, and it's very impressive. I touched upon some of those last time I was here.
The last time you were here, you had a fascinating migratory, you had a picture of the globe and the migration of species of birds and how they just seem to follow the same course.
That was a bird called a whimbrel, which is
The
a kind of
whimbrel, that's it,
shorebird,
yes,
a whimbrel.
right.
Yeah. And we actually have satellite tags on the whimbrels. We're going to be talking about 2 species. We'll get to that in a little while, but that have a little bit different migratory paths, doing similar Arctic flights. But we'll talk about some of the differences there. But finishing up with the land birds. Do you want to talk about some of the things that Trevor and you and others have found out as far as some of the potential climate change scenarios are with birds that are migrating from the northern part of the range, having a different trigger from those that are in the southern. You want to talk about those?
So one of the wonderful things that Manomet has been able to do over these past 40 plus years is get a really long-term data set over the populations of birds that are migrating through the area. So there are, I believe, over 450,000 individual birds that have been captured in the time that Manomet has existed there.
And
that's just land birds.
birds.
That is a lot of birds.
Wow.
So by having such a large number of birds over this really long period of time, you can tell when there are changes in the populations. So whether numbers are declining, whether they're increasing, or if there are changes in the timing of the birds. So if they're coming back earlier from their wintering grounds, or if they're leaving their breeding grounds earlier. Wow. So as a result of this long data set, we can tell that depending on where the species is spending its winters, if they're spending their winters in kind of the southern U.S. and northern Central America area, they are responding more strongly to climate change than if they're going all the way to South America. So because of a warming climate, these birds are being triggered by warmer temperatures and coming back up to, I believe it's 8 or 9 days earlier in some species.
In that time frame from the beginning of Manomet's work to now,
in only the space of a few decades, the changing climate of our world is causing these birds to come back an entire week earlier, which might not seem like it could have much of an effect, but some of these birds have food sources that they're tied to very specifically. So say the emergence of a certain caterpillar might always happen in the second week of May. And if these birds rely on that, now they're coming back in the first week of May, there could be some very serious consequences.
And so the second group of birds that go, these are the land birds again, that go down into the deeper tropics closer to the equator. They don't have, they're warm, they have an even temperature all the time. And so you want to talk about that a little bit?
So these birds that are going all the way down, like Brad said, to the equator, they're not feeling the changes that climate changes and global warming are causing, and so they aren't showing any difference really. There's almost no difference in their migration time over the past 40 years.
So their timing coming up through here to Plymouth and Manomet has been the same. That's really interesting.
I've noticed it, and we will move on soon. But I just wanted, it brought to mind when you're leading me to believe, and I do believe they're habitual. They have their habits. They're creatures of habit, and they seem to follow the same migratory patterns. But another thing I've noticed with the birds that are going through my yard. We have one bird that'll show up on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, and he'll sit in the same arbor, and he'll look at the house and he'll sing songs, and he goes away, and you won't see him for 2 more days. And he comes back, and he always sits in the same place, and I have never seen him on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Saturday or a Sunday. So, but
we'll have to tag that bird and find out where he's going on those other days.
To know because he's a beautiful songbird, and I never realized until conversation with you that birds fly at night. I always thought, well, you and I lay our heads down and go to sleep at night. I always thought a bird laid in the nest and went to sleep at night. And I found out that my hummingbirds are flying all night long, and it's like, oh, really? So, anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off.
Not at all. That's a nice story. Sure. So what we would like to move to is talk to you about a whole different group. Now that we've laid the groundwork, the birds that you saw when you drive up in the Manomet area, those are the land birds. We want to talk about shorebirds, and specifically sandpipers and plovers.
And I want you to talk about the birds that set my Twitter account on fire, because I was getting tweets from, it was either you or one of your associates about some big finds that you were coming up with. So
sure.
if you want to head down that road, fine.
We'll get
content
there.
to listen to what you have to say because I'm fascinated by this subject.
Super. I'm glad we got some tweets going for you.
Yes.
So these birds are dependent upon wetlands, and when I say wetlands, freshwater and our coastal wetlands too, the marshes and the beaches as well. But they are, there's a group of them. There are about 40 or so in the U.S., about 23 species roughly that we're going to be talking about that nest up in the Arctic and fly long distances through this part of the country and other parts of the country. But we have us, everybody, our development of the country, agriculture, all the different land uses we do has eliminated about 50% of wetlands. Not only in this country, but worldwide. And so this is a worldwide decline. The birds are tightly associated with the wetlands that we have been changing and destroying in many ways.
Right.
And so that's what Manomet's work is doing, is trying to maintain the various species of these wetland-dependent birds. And just from the gee whiz factor, we are working with birds that we are based on the technologies we're using now. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the devices we're using to actually follow these birds, but we're finding out a lot more, and we're fine-tuning our understanding of what they need throughout the year and where they need it. And we can bring it right back at the end of the show, talk about Manomet and the Cape Cod area and what that means for some of these migrants. So why don't you want to start? We'll start with some slides. We'll talk about what we did this summer.
Sure, Jimmy, when Jim, Brad will call for the shots, Jim, and you can let him put them up.
That'd be great.
Okay.
If we just start with the first slide, it shows. There we go. On the right hand part of the screen, you'll see the Coates Island camp. Little island. It looks little on the map up there, but the island's about 80 miles long and about 40 miles wide. And I spent about 3 weeks up there this summer. And Ian, if you look at the other red dot on the map, way over there in the mouth of the Canning River, up as far as north as you can go in Alaska, on the north slope of Alaska, right on the Arctic Ocean, is where Ian spent 6 weeks or so.
Yep,
about six weeks from early June to mid-July. He just got back on a camp there. So we'll talk about those camps a little bit individually,
sure,
and then we'll talk about the work because we were doing similar work as part of a Manomet project, a very large Manomet project to study shorebirds across the Arctic. So
very good.
Let's go to the next slide. Would be great. And this is the camp where I was. This is on the Coates Island, and just roughly, we work with the Canadian Wildlife Service. They flew us in there, actually. Really good partners for many different programs we do. And we found that the cabin that was built in 2004, the little building on the left up there that looks a little bit like a chicken coop. It was a little bit larger than a chicken coop, but it was pure luxury for us because we're used to living and working out of tents, and so to have
Isn't that what that yellow thing is there? A tent?
No, the tent, right? The yellow thing and the white thing too up there, just right next to behind the cabin. Yep.
I was going to have fun with you and say I like your hotel accommodations, but you went there first. So
believe me, it was luxury, and people give me a hard time for saying the word luxury when you're talking about something that literally...
it's a beautiful scene.
It's a beautiful scene. We were right on a river, and this photo was taken not long after we got there, and the snow you can see is drifted, and but the river has broken up, and as we were there while most of the snow was melting. We were there with some nice sunny days, and had the river increase in volume while we were there. Yeah, a spectacular place. The island, it's started to say, is 80 miles long, and it's about 40 miles wide. So if you picture Massachusetts, and you picture from Worcester to the New York line.
Right.
That's about 75 miles, and then Massachusetts is about 50 miles from top to bottom, border to border. This is about 40 miles, the island we were on, and there were 4 people on the whole island, and it was just us for that size area. So we were in a wilderness situation that was just really spectacular.
You didn't have any power then, if there's only 4 of you there, right?
We had, as far as electricity,
Yeah.
we actually had we had a little generator. So we did.
Oh.
We were able to run computers and do our do the data entry and all of that, and actually download photographs as well.
Very good.
Why don't we go to the next photo? That's the crew we were working with. There's the 4 of us. Stephen Brown's the director of shorebird science at Manomet. His wife Meta, and then a really good field assistant, Sage Dunn, and then I'm over there with the goofy hat on the left. But that's our cabin and home sweet home hotel, Marriott Hotel for us up there. Let's talk. You want to talk about your camp a little bit? I think if you go to the next slide, we'll. There you go. There's a Canyon River camp way up in northern Alaska.
Wow, that's a beautiful picture.
So that's where I lived for the past 6 weeks, and we didn't have anything nearly as luxurious as walls or a chicken coop or anything. Where we were, we had to fly in, and you actually land in early June on a frozen lake. There's no airstrip or anything. It's a complete snowy world up there.
Wow.
You land on the ice, and you have to carry all your gear about half a mile to where you're going to camp in sleds. And then you set up the little compounds that you can see up there. All the yellow tents on the left are where we slept. And on the right, you can see a kind of grayish tent and a yellow tent, and that's where we cooked and ate, and where we did data entry, and were able to have some solar power in the yellow tent as well. So we were also able to recharge things and download photos.
Great.
You want to talk about the strategic placement of the 2 groups of tents too, and why they would be so far apart?
Yeah, so if you notice, you can't really see in this photo, I don't think, but there's very slight fencing around each one of the camps, and that is to keep out bears, mainly grizzly bears. And it's electrified fencing that it might not look like much. It's basically 2 thin wires just held up by little pieces of wood. It looks like almost nothing. But bears investigate things by sniffing. So they're walking along, kind of snuffling around, and they notice something foreign. If they go up and sniff it, and it's electrified, well, they're going to turn tail and run pretty fast.
Wow.
So the tents on the right up there were the cook tents, and all the food was stored there. And so you don't want to have the food near where people are sleeping if a bear comes around, and
okay.
they're very good smelling. And we lock all the food up in both camps at night. But we separate the sleeping area from where the food area is in case a bear gets in there. So
just in case.
Just in case, yeah. We haven't had any problems, but it's just a precaution.
Grizzly bears, huh?
Grizzly bears, yeah, bear and ground grizzlies.
Wow.
We had well, we've got a bear photo at the end. We don't want to give it away,
No.
but yeah, okay.
That's another beautiful photograph.
That's another one. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about how remote, and this is a picture of Hudson Bay, flying over Hudson Bay, and this is actually toward the end of June, and it's there's a lot of sea ice up there. It's an incredible landscape, and we flew for about 3 hours just across the north part of it from Baffin Island over to Coates Island.
That much ice, the end of June.
Correct. Yep. And that's a breakup right there in the Hudson Strait, and all of that ice will be breaking up fairly rapidly with the heat from the sun and moving out into North Atlantic actually. So.
Wow.
Okay, you go. Next slide's good. Yeah, I just want to give another landscape idea here with this photograph, and you can see 2 figures way in the distance, a little bit to the left of center, and those are 2 of our co-workers up there. And this is an Arctic wetland. You can see there are no trees, The sun, where I was, set briefly. I was just under the Arctic Circle, so the sun set briefly, but it never got dark, and then came back up again about 2 hours later. Where Ian was, the sun never set, so it just spins around. He's close enough to the North Pole, so within the Arctic Circle, so the sun never goes down. And
Pulled a lot of all-nighters, huh?
it's very tempting, and we'll get to that with some of the photos for sure, yeah. But the work we're doing up there, we'll get to it in a minute, but we're the tallest trees there are some little willows that are about, a few inches off the ground.
In that marsh?
This is looking across tundra. This is everywhere.
That's tundra,
That's wetland tundra. Yep.
Wow.
And everywhere you go, that's what the landscape with some variation looks like.
I don't think people at home could see the gauge you were using. How many inches tall did you say
sorry,
they were?
it was just the willows just come up where there's some shelter. They're able to come up just a few inches off the ground.
Inches.
Yeah. So in some of the rivers, they become larger. They're larger woody. Those are the woody woody vegetation up there. So. Two things when we get back. The trees suddenly become outstanding and a little intimidating when you have forests around coming back to New England.
Yes.
And then night, because we don't see darkness. So you come back and all of a sudden
It's dark.
it's dark.
Yeah.
Two things you don't think much about.
Right.
But
Must be tough to get your body clock back in.
it takes some time usually,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Jet lag and time.
Wow.
So anyway, that's kind of the landscape we work in, both in Alaska and in northern Canada. And you can go ahead. Be great. This is down on the coast. This is Hudson Bay, right on the coast. Really a nice
That's a
day.
beautiful picture too.
Shallow water. The tide was coming in just as it does here. And we were actually looking for some shorebird food there on the coast. But you can see the ice pack is still just offshore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. So we want to talk about migration a little bit, and we want to get to the shorebird migration certainly, but there are a lot of things that migrate, and people are very familiar with caribou.
Yes.
I know about them, and caribou in very large numbers, particularly in northern Alaska, come out toward the coast where our camp is. And Ian had last year and this year at the Canyon River Camp some great encounters with large numbers of caribou.
It was pretty spectacular. Last year we were lucky enough to see roughly 30,000 caribou come through in our time there.
Kidding.
And you'd have herds coming through 6,000, 8,000, just complete. It was amazing. You looked out and the ground was just nothing but caribou. We like to joke about it. It's like the American Serengeti. It's almost like you're in
very
Africa.
much, yeah.
Right.
And this year we actually had about 40,000 caribou. So we had even more than last year.
Are
And
they as inquisitive as the grizzly bear?
They almost don't care about you. It's pretty amazing. If you walk towards them, they'll kind of move away. But if you're standing still or laying down, they'll actually move towards you. And you can have a herd of like 10,000 animals come and part around you like water around a rock in a river.
No kidding.
And they'll just be 10, 20 feet away, and they
That
just
must be
don't
fascinating.
For a
Amazing.
photographer, it's a mind-blowing
Oh,
experience.
yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
Really
good.
great.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was
No, so we just wanted to talk about rhythms of migration up there, and the winters, as you can imagine, are quite severe. So there are just a few species that will overwinter way up on the North Slope and in northern Canada as well, eastern Arctic. So we can go on and show you a couple of other. We're getting into some of the birds that migrate up there.
Beautiful bird.
Yeah, Ian took that photo, and that's a Pacific loon. They're certainly across the Arctic landscape, and you can see the water droplets as the bird's moving through. I guess it must have been windy that day.
Yeah, it was moving into waves, and they were kind of breaking across the front of the bird as it was swimming in the edge of this lake.
So just spectacular birds and colors, and we're exposed to some really neat things up there. So that's a migrant.
Are you using a regular camera with this, or a special camera?
So it's just it's an SLR. It's called a single lens reflex. So yeah, it's just one of the.
One. That's why I asked
It's
you.
a digital,
I
for
have
sure.
No
a
kidding.
Canon digital SLR. And
Great
then
work.
Thank you.
Great work.
And then the lenses are important too.
Yes.
Yeah, telephoto lenses. So 300 or 400 millimeter lenses.
Sorry to interrupt you again. It's just
Not at all. No,
the
good.
The picture is absolutely beautiful.
These are good.
It is.
And at some point, I guess our caller's going to be calling in at some point.
I'm
We're just
hoping
rolling.
that somebody gets away from the TV set and calls up, 508-830-3971. If you have any questions for these two gentlemen, they'd be more than happy to answer them for you. 508-830-3971. I know you're out there watching. Call in.
We can do that now. We can keep going through the slides until
Sure.
somebody calls. Sure. So another migrant that comes into Arctic areas. This is another Ian photo. This is one of my favorite birds. Is a male king eider, and they are there escorting females who are building nests. The males don't contribute anything to actually nest building or incubation or actually rearing young. But while she's there and building and laying eggs, the males follow them around, and we have chances to interact with them. And what was the story with this particular photo?
One of the amazing things about the birds up there in general is that they tend to be really tame. They don't have as much fear of people as birds around here do. So if you go and you just kind of lay down for a while, they'll often forget you're there, similar to the caribou. And so this was one of two beautiful male king eider that were on this small pond. I just laid down right on the edge and just waited for a while, and eventually they swam over.
What a beautiful bird.
And were basically right in front of me.
Wow,
So.
I can see why you get that camera. I mean, that's beautiful. That's really great.
And the lighting too. The thing about the sun that doesn't set is that while we do the research during the day, we frequently don't have nice evenings. First of all, the wind, storms, heavy clouds are very frequent. But some nights when the sun is actually out, it's very hard for those with cameras to actually go to sleep. So you work all day, recording data, and we'll get into some of the data here in a minute. But and then the sun gets low, the wind quiets down at night, and you get birds that look like this in front of you. It's very hard to go to bed. So we work.
It's a form of relaxation, I'm sure.
Exactly. It's as good as sleep, right? I mean, who needs sleep?
Right, exactly. Yeah. What the heck? You can't go to the local bar room and have a beer.
That's right. Why not? Yeah, that's true. None of that.
I keep going off into space.
No,
someplace.
we're enjoying it. We're enjoying it.
And so this photo, the photo of the king eider, believe it or not, that's taken at close to midnight.
Really?
It's totally a foreign concept because, of course, it's dark around midnight, right?
Yes.
But instead you get this beautiful kind of soft, warm light that you'll see around here close to sunset. And you'll kind of get that for 8 or 10 hours a day. So like Brad was saying, you just don't want to go to bed because it's perfect.
It is perfect. It's beautiful. It really is.
And those rare nights when wind is not blowing, because it tends to howl up there most of the time. So yeah. Anyway, go on. So we'll start talking about what we're here to talk about. And these are shorebirds. This is a really neat one. This is one called a phalarope. This is a red phalarope. Their bills, these shorebirds, are built for feeding on mostly insect larvae. In this case, this bird spends most of the winter out in the open ocean, which is unusual for shorebirds.
Right.
But they're all drawn back into these wetlands we've been talking about, and in the Arctic landscape, there tends to be a lot of wetland habitat. And this is a female red phalarope, and she uses that bill to catch insect larvae out of the water up there in the little ponds.
Now, how far inland would you see this type of a shorebird? Have you ever seen one further in?
It depends, and we'll get to that in just a second.
Okay,
actually,
right.
no, you're
I
good.
didn't mean to
You're
get ahead of
queuing
you.
it up. No, you're queuing up a future slide.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it wasn't planned.
You went right to our map in your head, didn't you?
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's fine. So shorebirds, they're called shorebirds. It's a little bit confusing, but they're small. They're little guys. They're the sandpipers and the plovers you see on the beach normally. But let's go to the next slide, and then Yeah, this is a really neat one. We just saw some today, actually, out on the beach of Cape Cod. This is called a black-bellied plover, and they are both nesting in Arctic Alaska and over in Canada, and they come through here on migration. But this is a male, and just to give you a variety of what we're seeing up there. And this is one of my favorite birds of all time. With it, you don't get a lot of birds with that kind of inky jet black and with a white back, and
it almost looks like a black and white photograph.
Yeah, right, in that rocky landscape right in the edge of a river. Your viewers could go out tomorrow to the beaches here in Massachusetts and New England and see birds that have just come down from the Arctic that look just like this, in this plumage. We saw several today, and they're looking this good right now. They'll lose it.
In Plymouth?
This species of bird is here now. They're just starting. The birds that have nested or attempted to nest in the Arctic areas where you saw our camps.
Right.
These guys now, this is from Coates Island. This photograph is from Coates Island. These birds, if they have failed to nest, are already coming south, and your viewers can go, if they're going to the beach, they can see this species of plover now here as they're coming down out of the Arctic. So it's a really neat thing to look for when you're out in some of the outer beaches.
Is this an endangered species?
It is not. No, this is not an endangered bird. They are protected. Shorebirds are protected.
Yes, they are.
But this particular one is not an endangered species, no. But anyway, go next slide would be great. Okay, here we go. This is the slide you queued up.
The map, yeah.
This is the map. This is a different map, and we wanted to talk about two different species that have two different migratory patterns. And your viewers hopefully can see the black lines coming through the center part of the country. There's those are north and south
those are going
lines
on the left side, yeah.
Correct. And then the lighter red lines is a different bird that is called the red lines are with the semi-palmated sandpiper migration route roughly, and the black lines belong to a bird called the buff-breasted sandpiper. And we're going to talk, I think maybe the next slide. So the red lines are going to the northern part of South America.
Okay.
And if you look carefully, the black lines actually lead. There's one way down there in South America.
Yeah, down there.
That leads way down into the grasslands of Uruguay and Argentina, and I guess a little bit of southern Brazil, way down south in South America. So you're talking about inland. You were asking if some birds go inland a little bit. These guys, the ones that are migrating through the center part of the country, these buff-breasted sandpipers, then winter way down in the grasslands, interior grasslands of essentially pastures and open wetland prairies down there in the southern part of Uruguay and northern part of Argentina.
Wow.
So the semi-palmated sandpipers that are coming both out of Alaska and eastern Canada, we probably saw about 1,500 of them today right here on the beaches. I was out on the south beach of Chatham, and those birds are already migrating south. But we just wanted to show the difference in migration patterns between these two, because we're going to talk a little bit about them and some of the research that's going on that Manomet has been involved with. So.
Wow. You were in Chatham today, looking at birds?
Yeah, maybe you don't want to know that I was driving very quickly between where I was to get here tonight. So I was.
That's okay. Karen
yeah.
would have paid for the ticket.
But I was out on actually out of Manomet with Brian Harrington, who was one of the founding scientists at the shorebird scientist at Manomet. Some of the work that's going on today, conservation work, was based on some of his original work, and he is still at it. And he's retired from Manomet now, but was out with him today on the beach and looking at a bird called a red knot that he spent his whole career studying. So it's a nice link. But
Manomet is a beautiful place.
It's really spectacular. It's changing with the storms from last winter. It has opened up. It's changed, but it was interesting to see.
We were in that area this past Sunday and looking around, and It's beautiful down there. Anyways, I took you off again. I'm
No,
sorry.
we're just we're with you.
Well, okay.
We're with you.
We're all together.
We're all together.
All right, super.
All right. So I had a couple people worried about me getting here on time tonight. Is what I'm leading to. So,
Okay,
but we're here.
well,
We're good.
You made it.
Made it. Yeah. Ian was going to handle it by himself.
Will you
He
take
was,
a check for the
for the ticket? Yeah. No tickets. I was doing pretty well. It was just a.
Okay.
It was. I think. Yeah. Anyway, we won't get into that. Yeah. We won't get into that.
508-830-3971. Come on, get involved. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So yeah, the research we're doing, we're part of what we call Manomet's Arctic demographics, shorebird demographics network, and there are camps starting way over in Russia, all the way over to eastern Canada, that are essentially doing the same thing, measuring various parts of the biology of the birds we're studying, these shorebirds. And here, Stephen Brown is holding a semi-palmated sandpiper. You can see the size of the bird if you can see what's in his hand. They're very small.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenal thing to think about that bird, and you saw the migration routes they take.
Yes.
From high Arctic going all the way down into southern South America. So into the north coast of South America in the case of the semi-palms. We're doing banding of these birds. We're doing color banding of these birds to follow them from one year to another, looking at survival of the birds that are nesting up there. That's why we're going to the Arctic, because they tend to come back to the territories where they were the year before. So we can, as wide ranging as these birds are, we can come back to their nesting grounds and observe them year after year,
right,
and understand their survival throughout the year. We also are looking at nesting survival, how those nests go from one day to day, actually, just to see where some of the problems are with declines we've seen in them, how we can pinpoint what life stage is most threatened or vulnerable to create declines in the population. So you imagine camps like we've been talking about across the Arctic, all doing the same thing. It's the really large-scale effort that has never been attempted before with such a large group of people, and with all the different partners we have. There are about 15 or 20 different institutions and state government organizations and nonprofits like ourselves that are all dependent on funding, and from public funding is definitely part of the work we do.
That's why people need to go to www.manomet.org.
That would be great. Find some programs there, and get in touch with our development folks too. Yeah,
okay.
Get in touch with our development folks.
Now we're getting close. We've got about 10 more minutes.
Really? Okay.
So we can stay here and talk afterwards if you want to.
Sure, let's do that. Let's rip through the slides then.
But I want to make sure
good slides.
I want to make sure that people get to see some of Ian's great work here.
Yeah. And mine, but I won't.
I'm sorry, Brad. I meant no disrespect, Brad. I'm sorry.
No, I've been. He's a phenomenal photographer.
Yes,
yeah,
I
try. How about that? I try.
All right.
So we got some stories to tell you. This is a semi-palmated sandpiper, and the bands I was telling you about,
yes,
you can see on the legs, individually banded. We can follow that bird for as many years as it goes back to Arctic landscape to nest. Go ahead. We've got some good stories to tell you. Here's a semi-palmated male displaying, trying to catch the attention of a female up there. Really neat behavior that bird enthusiasts here don't get to see very often.
That's cute.
Yeah, and she wasn't paying much attention to him.
She seems kind of blasé. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have seen that one on Twitter. Actually, I tweeted that one.
I think I did see that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this one Ian can talk about. This is the buff-breasted sandpiper we wanted to talk about, and this is a full display. Go ahead.
So just like the last picture shown, the male bird is the one with his wings up trying to attract the females. But in this one, they're paying a little bit more attention. If you can notice, just to the left and right of his head, there are actually two females that are inches away from him, almost under his wings, checking out every single feather, making sure it's just in the right place. And if it's not,
Big
then
time scrutiny.
they're heading away.
And there's one behind him that's
Yeah.
kind of hard to see. She's just to the left. Yeah.
So they're just checking him out from every direction. And,
So he's popular.
well,
Is it-
maybe. I don't know. That he hasn't finished inspection yet.
Yeah.
But if you ever think you've been judged or anything, you've never been under the scrutiny that a buff-breasted sandpiper gets when he's displaying.
There's Ian taking a photograph of the birds, and as he mentioned before, there tends to be, if you're quiet and you lie still, these guys will go through their behaviors. And here's one that's trying to attract attention of females that are flying by. Mostly, he's literally waving at them, and you see that white underwing.
Yes.
It turns into a flash out on the tundra.
Wow.
So buff-breasteds are one of the birds that we're studying up there. And go ahead. There's a photo of a bird doing that's an Ian photo of a
beautiful
bird holding its
bird.
wing up. Yeah, they're
Beautiful
really
bird.
sharp, and they look a little bit like a dove.
Yes.
A little bit like a dove. These are the guys that live in the grasslands I was telling you about. They're not, we'll see them on Outer Cape, usually the young ones, starting in early September. A few of them, but most of them do migrate into the middle part of the country, and the issues there again are interior wetlands and grasslands, natural prairie grasslands that have disappeared, and these birds are under some strain. They're actually quite rare, the buff-breasteds. There's a shorebird nest right there, a little bit right of center. You see 4 eggs.
The 4 eggs,
See how
yeah.
camouflaged they are?
Yeah.
And we have to find those nests. And Ian mentioned that we trap them with little bow nets over that nest. So we find the nest, and unlike what we use here with the mist nets, we use a little bow net. And just like you probably had as a kid trying to box trap a rabbit or something, we walk away with a little fishing line, and we actually pop the net over the bird on the nest. So that's how we actually catch them.
Ah.
Go ahead. We've got some good ones to roll. I want to end up with your great one at the end with our big white friend.
Indeed.
Buff-breasted chick. Really neat. Really camouflaged little guy that's just hatched out probably a day or so before this picture.
The one to the right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the one on the left is an adult, and actually there are 3 chicks under her right now. She keeps them warm for a few days after they've hatched. And so the 4th guy on the right was scooting over and about to get under her for some warming up as well. Yep.
Okay, quick story, and this is the incredible one you read about in our
On
tweets.
Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, on our Twitter. So
Yeah.
we're in Ian's in northern Alaska. Picture that, northern Alaska.
Right.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if you noticed, but the photo of the banded bird earlier, there was a green marker on its leg.
Yes.
And in this one, that is a blue marker. So the flag color indicates which country it's from. Blue
Really?
means it's from Brazil.
Really.
So we're up there in northern Alaska and doing all of our normal duties, and we go out and we check a nest, and a bird flushes off the nest, and it has a blue flag on its leg. Amazing coincidence. There's a guy named David Mizrahi who works for New Jersey Audubon Society who is banding birds in northeastern Brazil, and one of his birds turned up on our study area about 8,000 miles away.
Wow.
In northern Alaska.
And my Twitter account went nuts. I was getting tweets about this bird.
And what's even crazier is that last year we had another Brazil bird. It was a different one. So in 2 years, out of the 1,200 birds that he has banded, we've gotten 2 of them in the same location.
No kidding.
So his banding site is just to the east of the mouth of the Amazon River on the coast of Brazil. So picture the
Like-
tropical, Amazon River.
That little fellow went all that distance.
Draining the entire central part of South America.
Right.
This guy and many of the others winter over down there. Now that bird has to get all the way to northern Alaska, and to do that, it's the long distance hops I was telling you about.
Right.
So they need specific areas to refuel, to migrate all the way up to Alaska by breeding season, and then all the way down again, and survive all the hazards along the way. So we have created some impediments for those guys with some of our habitat destruction we've done along the way. So Manomet is working to figure out where the stopover sites are, how we can tell people about them, and how we can help protect them with these refueling stops. So that little guy.
I could see why he was excited over seeing that, because just by seeing the blue band,
Absolutely.
because he's around, he understands what it is.
And New Jersey Audubon is one of Manomet's partners, and we work with them on different projects. And Dave Mizrahi is a fellow researcher. So we collaborate with people not only in New England, but also all the way down into South America. As part of what Manomet does is to bring people to work together to solve large hemispheric-sized issues. And we've been doing that since the early 70s.
Very good.
Let's go quickly if we can. I know this is a little semi-palmated chick, really special little guys, little fuzzball. Oh, here we go. This is one we wanted to talk about. This is an Ian photo.
So as you might be able to tell, this is a polar bear.
Yes.
Which is pretty incredible sight to be able to witness. And what's very unusual about it is that this photo was taken several miles inland, which is highly unusual for polar bears. They're normally species that stick right along the coast and are really tied to the ice, the sea ice up there. And this was very special in that it was very early as well. The pack ice melted much earlier than usual, and so this bear was way out of where it should be, and it was the first time that it had ever been seen there. And definitely a sign of change in the climate and the whole world up there.
And one more bit about the bear. I know we want to end up there, but body-wise, you can look at that guy and understand that it's not in good shape. It's fairly thin. Polar bears at this time of year, if they're healthy, have been eating seals all winter long out on the ice. And this guy is thin, and apparently he smelled a dead caribou or something came inland. So last slide we have is actually right out here on Plymouth, Long Beach, and this is part of the migration. And these are semi-palmated sandpipers that we've been talking about that could be coming out of Alaska. Definitely some of the birds from the eastern part of the range are coming down. So your viewers and we are all connected to the work we're doing and to these far-off places, and we're just trying to get the word out that that our coastal areas are hosting. We are hosting these birds that travel incredible distances, and treating them right while they're here and other places within the U.S. I think is a very important stewardship necessity and responsibility that we have to steward these special birds as they go.
Well, speaking for myself, and also speaking for my wife Karen, you guys are welcome here anytime. Because
is Karen cooking some dinner for us? Is that why she's not here?
Well, she's getting ready for she's getting ready for this big meeting that she has tomorrow night.
Okay.
And she's really very sorry that she couldn't be here.
She was great last time. I enjoyed talking to her.
Well,
but you've been good too.
Well, I try to be. I try to be, because I'm as interested in this stuff as she is, and you know, it's. You guys do fabulous stuff. You really do. And Ian, I extend you the same invitation as I do to Brad and to your other associate, whose name is escaping me at the minute.
Stephen Brown.
Stephen Brown, and there was somebody that sent something over for Karen the last time too.
Dave McClinchy.
Dave McClinchy. You gentlemen are welcome here anytime.
You don't know Dave, but I'll let him know anyway. That you,
well, you know,
that might be pushing a little bit if you're being that kind.
Really, this has been absolutely fabulous. I can't thank you enough. Really, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for hosting us.
I really do appreciate it.
Manomet.org.
www.manomet.org. And for the crew here at Talk of the Town, for my wife Karen, thank you to Stevie, thank you to Jimmy. I'm Ken, and I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. We're going to see you in 7, and I believe in 7 we're going to be talking about whales. I think that's what it is. But anyways, we'll see you in 7. Thanks for tuning in.